Inside the TrumpPutin Alaska venue Scramble, why a military base was the last resort. The first meeting between U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin in more than 4 years will take place in Alaska on Friday. But before the handshakes, organizers faced an unexpected hurdle finding a venue. The summit, agreed only last week after Trump's envoy met Putin in Moscow, sent U.S. and Russian officials scrambling for a suitable site. In peak tourist season in Alaska, most large venues were booked, security needs were uncompromising, and the White House wanted to avoid awkward optics. In the end, those pressures left them with just one choice: a military base in Anchorage. U.S. State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce said on Tuesday local time that the idea for the summit came directly from Vladimir Putin. President Donald Trump, she added, agreed to the meeting to see what he has in mind and intends to brief European Union leaders, NATO, and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on any potential deal. The proposal emerged shortly after U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff's visit to Moscow last week, prompting a frantic search for a venue that could meet G7-level security requirements, allow private leader-to-leader talks, and accommodate full press operations, all on an exceptionally tight timeline. Alaska in August is packed with tourists, and most large venues that could host hundreds of delegates, security staff, and journalists were already full. On top of that, a U.S.-Russia summit demands facilities that can be sealed off for motorcades, equipped with secure meeting rooms, and supported by robust communications networks. U.S. officials explored options in Juneau, Anchorage, and Fairbanks, but many civilian sites, including several in Anchorage, were either unavailable or could not meet these security and logistical requirements. When news of the planned meeting leaked, a few prominent Alaskans offered their homes through Trump's allies, but private residences could not provide the accreditation systems, multi-layered perimeters, or technical infrastructure needed for a meeting of this scale. In the end, Anchorage remained the only city with a site that could work. By early this week, organizers concluded that only Anchorage, Alaska's largest city and main air transport hub, could meet the summit's requirements. Within Anchorage, only Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson-J-Bear, a combined U.S. Army and Air Force installation on the city's northern edge, ticked every box for the meeting: controlled airspace, secure and reinforced facilities, lockable perimeters, and space to manage both motorcade routes and press operations. CNN reported, citing two White House officials, that this is where the two men will meet on Friday. The White House initially hoped to avoid the political optics of welcoming the Russian leader to a U.S. military installation, CNN reported. But in the end, security needs outweighed public relations concerns. Civilian sites couldn't match JBR's layered perimeter, restricted airspace, screened access points, and pre-cleared facilities for a planned translator-only segment between the two presidents. A European venue, Vienna or Geneva, was ruled out after the Kremlin balked at hosting the meeting in an ICC member state, CNN reported. While Russia rejects ICC jurisdiction, the warrant issued for Putin in 2023 created both legal and optics risks. Putin suggested the UAE is entirely suitable, but the White House preferred to avoid another long Middle East trip after Trump's May visit. That narrowed the options to Hungary, where PM Viktor Orbán is close to both leaders, and the United States. American officials told CNN they were pleased and somewhat surprised when the Kremlin agreed to U.S. soil, and, as some noted, to land that once belonged to the Russian Empire. Alaska was colonized by Russia from the 18th century until Tsar Alexander II sold it to the U.S. in 1867 for $7.2 million. It later became a Cold War forward edge of missile defense, radar outposts, and intelligence gathering. East meets West literally and strategically. Russian state agency TASS noted it would be the first ever visit by a Russian leader to Alaska. While Ukraine will be absent from Friday's talks, Trump is scheduled to speak with Zelensky by phone on Wednesday, in a call that will also include European leaders. The Kremlin has long resisted a direct Putin-Zelensky meeting until a peace deal is ready to sign. Putin said last week he was not against meeting Zelensky, but that certain conditions need to be created and we're still a long way off. The summit will also mark Putin's first visit to the United States since 2015, when he attended the UN General Assembly in New York. As the U.S. is not a member of the International Criminal Court, it is under no obligation to act on the ICC's 2023 arrest warrant against him. The White House is calling it a listening session and feel-out meeting. Marco Rubio, the U.S. Secretary of State, framed Trump's approach on Tuesday. The president wants to look Putin face-to-face unknown and make a personal assessment. The White House press secretary Caroline Leavitt said a translator-only segment is part of the plan. Trump has sounded exasperated with Russia's continued bombardment of Ukrainian cities. Kyiv has agreed to a ceasefire as a first step. Moscow's ceasefire asks, which Zelensky rejects as non-starters, include items such as withdrawing troops from the 4 regions Russia illegally annexed in 2022, halting mobilization, and freezing Western arms deliveries. For any broader peace, Putin demands Kyiv cede the annexed regions in Crimea, renounce NATO, limit the size of its armed forces, and recognize Russian as an official language alongside Ukrainian. Zelensky insists any deal must include robust security guarantees to deter future aggression, adding on Saturday Ukrainians will not give their land to the occupier. On Monday, Trump said there'll be some land swapping going on for the good of Ukraine. Good stuff, not bad stuff. Also, some bad stuff for both. European officials have been probing what peace parameters Putin may have floated via Witkoff's Moscow visit. Some expressed frustration at the lack of clarity so far. Rubio spoke with Sergei Lavrov about certain aspects of preparation, per Russia's foreign ministry. Trump will hear from European leaders in a virtual meeting on Wednesday arranged by Germany to gather views before Friday, and has vowed to call them and Zelensky immediately after the summit. For Putin, the Alaska summit is a diplomatic breakthrough after years of relative isolation. It offers a platform to cement Russia's battlefield gains, keep Ukraine out of NATO, and prevent Western troops from being stationed there. He believes time is on Moscow's side as Ukrainian forces come under pressure along the front. For Trump, it is a chance to assess Putin directly and determine whether a serious path toward a settlement exists. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte said on Sunday that Trump's goal is to gauge if Putin is serious, and if so, the next phase would involve Ukraine and European partners. Ukraine and European Union leaders have warned against any deal that excludes Kyiv. As Zelensky put it, any decisions that are without Ukraine are at the same time decisions against peace. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas reinforced that message international law is clear: all temporarily occupied territories belong to Ukraine. Swipe left for next video. Alaska offered history and symbolism, but it was the logistics, not the lore, that decided it. Tourist season sellouts, infrastructure limits, the ICC complication for Europe, the White House's North Middle East preference, and the need for SCIF-grade spaces and tight perimeters meant Anchorage by elimination. The stage that almost